a lot of, they didn't have too many women who were fighters in the war. They had some, what they called were waves. They were from the Navy, and then they had some people from the Army. What did they call them? Anyhow, and they had some people who were training on airplanes, except that they wouldn't let them go. They felt that the women should not be exposed to the war, and in the end, they finally realized, and the general, who was General Eisenhower, realized that we need these people. We're running out of men. We need these women, and since they want to work, they want to fight. Let's bring them in and let them fight. So by the end of the war, there were a number of women fighting, but most of the women who stayed at home, they either stayed at home and took care of their kids like my mother did, or else they would work and take the jobs that the men had to leave because they had to go overseas and fight. So Rosie the Riveter was an example. You heard of Rosie the Riveter?
Yes.
Yeah, well, she was an example. They were trying to get the women to come and work in the factories and to build the airplanes and the tanks and all that. And there were a lot of things we didn't have because of the war. The war, of course, got the best of everything because those guys needed it to fight. So we didn't get much meat, and there was no more butter. Instead of butter, we had to eat something that was like Crisco, and it was not very, very tasty to put Crisco on your bread.
What is Crisco?
Oh, it's a white fat.
Kind of like coconut oil, you know.
Yeah.
But not as tasty.
No. And there was rations on a lot of things. Rations. If you want to call them rations, we call them rations. In fact, I still have a couple of the books that have the coupons in it that you had to use to get, say, meat and sugar, and you couldn't get butter, and a number of other things. Shoes. They had rations for shoes because the shoes had to go on to the feet of the people who were out fighting the war, and we couldn't get shoes. So you wore your shoes until they wore out completely, and then you would get them resoled because they had holes in the soles, and you wore them some more.
Because you couldn't get new shoes.
You couldn't get new shoes. You could get maybe one pair a year because you had enough coupons to get one pair a year, maybe.
Where'd you get the coupons from?
The government. They issued them to everybody.
Oh, how did they do that? Through the mail or?
I really don't know how they
Oh,
did
okay.
that.
That's true.
Wasn't
Your mom
something
would
I
probably
have been
handle it.
involved with. But I knew they had them, and I knew that we couldn't get stuff because we didn't, because of the coupons.
Oh.
A lot of people started victory gardens, and they were growing their own vegetables. My mother did not.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people did do victory gardens. And there were a lot of things that we didn't have. For instance, when my little tricycle broke, there was nothing to replace it. There were no bicycles. The only people who got bicycles were people who needed them for transportation. Like the kid across the street who was in high school, he would have to walk 3 or 4 miles to school. And so he was able to get a bicycle, so he could ride his bike to school and get there faster. But there were no bicycles, there were no scooters, there were nothing, no wagons. And, you know, we just did without with the old ones that were around. And they gave the kids roller skates. We all had roller skates. I learned to roller skate when I was 3 or 4. And we were all up and down the streets on our roller skates.
Was it fun?
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Was that the best form of entertainment you had during World War II, or were there better?
Well, we had toys to play with. I had blocks, and I had dolls and stuffed animals and stuff. They had an